Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we're hopping right back into my top 50 list in NBA history. And today we got Tim Duncan, the big fundamental as many call him. Now on my all-time list, Duncan currently ranks at number 10. Before we hop into Tim Duncan, gonna need you guys to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you get to see the rest of this top 50 list. As we're getting to the end, we're in the top 10 now. But without further ado, let's get into Tim Duncan. Now, he was a 15-time NBA All-Star, and this includes every year from 1998 until 2015, with the exception of 1999 having no All-Star game, and then also 2012 and 2014. He was a 10-time member All-NBA First Team from 1998 to 2005, along with 2007 and 2013. All-NBA Second Team 3 times in 2006, 2008, and 2009, and in 2010 and 2015, he was All-NBA Third Team. He's also a 2-time MVP in 2002 and 2003, and he made 8 times All-Defensive First Team from 1999 to 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2008, along with 7 All-Defensive Second Teams in 1998, 2004, 2006, 2009, 2010, 2013, and 2015. And even though he never won Defensive Player of the Year, he might be the greatest player to never win Defensive Player of the Year. A 5-time champion in 1999, 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014, and a 3-time Finals MVP in 1999, 2003, and 2005. Now, in terms of MVP shares, he received votes for 16 seasons, 9 of which he was a top 5 finisher. Twice he was a runner-up in 2001 to Allen Iverson and 2004 to Kevin Garnett, and a 2-time winner from 2002 and 2003. Now, Garnett in 2004, it's hard to make a case against that. Maybe against AI, because Duncan was a better rebounder, defender, better record, more efficient, and more win shares. But ultimately, I think AI still had to carry such a substantial offensive load. It hasn't really been replicated much in NBA history that it's kind of hard to say anything but him deserving that award. Regardless, Duncan was top 2 in MVP every year from 2000 to 2004. For some all-time stats, 15,091 rebounds, 3,020 blocks, 10.8 rebounds a game, and 2.2 blocks per game puts him 6th, 5th, 32nd, and 21st all-time respectively. 24.2 PER puts him 14th all-time. 206.4 win shares puts him 7th all-time. 100 offensive win shares is 23rd all-time. 106.3 defensive win shares puts him 2nd all-time. A .209 win share per 48 rating puts him 17th in NBA history. A 91.1 VORP rating puts him 6th all-time. 95.6 defensive rating is 3rd all-time. And in terms of box plus minus, and then both on the offensive and defensive end for box plus minus, with a 5.6 for 15th, a 3.3 for 46, and a 2.3 for 11th, in respective order how I listed them. But now let's move on to Tim Duncan in the playoffs. And when it comes to the playoffs, his transition seems kind of boring, but I guess that's kind of what fits because, well, he always looked bored in his career. Most of his stats and averages stay about the same. His BPM rises, his scoring output rises. He does drop a little bit in efficiency and is more frequently in foul trouble, though. He averaged 20 points per game in 26 of 48 playoff series, 25 points per game in 11 of 48, and even had a series in 2006 against Dallas where he averaged 32.3 points per game. In 1999, it was the lockout season, and the Spurs had a low-key big three. I mean, in the first round, Avery Johnson was kind of the saving grace that went off against Minnesota. Duncan was dominant in round 2 against Shaq and the Lakers, and even outplayed Shaq in that series. And David Robinson was the integral reason as to why they swept Portland in the Western Conference Finals. But in the finals, Duncan was by far the best player and Finals MVP, as they went 15-2 on this run. However, there are a few things that don't really make it the ultimate title. I mean, first of all, as I said, it was a lockout, and following Michael Jordan's retirement in 1998, the NBA was kind of in a scramble. The second is that they faced the 8-seeded Knicks in the finals, who lost Patrick Ewing in the conference finals against Indiana. So while this is still great, it's definitely not Duncan's best moment, but it still should be remembered. I would say the 2003 playoff run, however, is Duncan's greatest playoff moment. There was no total dominance, but the dramatic effect going 6 games with each team made it pretty interesting. Duncan's worst round was probably the first round against Phoenix, although they were young and inexperienced, and that didn't take much out of Duncan to beat them. In round 2 against the Lakers, Duncan and Shaq were more evenly matched this time, and actually one could argue Kobe was even the best player of this series, but the difference was the big three, Tony Parker in year 2 and Manu Ginobili in year 1, as they proved then and there that they would be important to the team for a long time. They beat Dallas in 6 in the Western Conference Finals, although Dirk did get hurt in Game 3 and missed the rest of the series afterwards. But Duncan was great in the finals, averaging 24 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 blocks, 49.5% from the field on a plus 26 net rating, and an unofficial closeout Game 6 quadruple double where the NBA cheated Duncan out of 2 blocks, and in my opinion this is the most well-rounded closeout game to a championship ever, and in no surprise he was the finals MVP. However, when we get to 2005, this might be one of the runs Duncan gets maybe too much credit for, because I believe he was maybe not only the best Spur in this whole playoff run, and nor did he deserve the finals MVP. Rather, I think that honor belongs to Manu Ginobili. I mean, over the entire run, Ginobili was much more efficient on a much higher net rating in every round, along with Ginobili playing some of the best defense of his life. And you might say he was a bench player, but he really wasn't, considering he started every game in the regular season as well as the NBA Finals. In fact, he literally locked up guys such as Ray Allen and Richard Hamilton in this run, and arguably had a bigger defensive load given their matchups, while Duncan only faced one interior scoring presence in all 4 rounds, and that was Amari Stoudemire, who averaged 37 points per game and 10 rebounds per game on 55% from the field and 61% true shooting on him. In the final stats comparison, sure, Duncan had 2 more points per game and more rebounds, but Ginobili was the better playmaker and the better player for a majority of the games this series, most of which were wins, including being 16% more efficient true shooting and a higher net rating by plus 10, and was easily the best player for the full duration of Game 7 and the 4th quarter of one of the 5 most important NBA games in the past 3 decades. Not saying Duncan wasn't great, but Ginobili was the man this playoff run and most deserving of the finals MVP. In 2007 is when the Spurs Big Three was all playing at their best. They no longer needed to solely rely on Tim Duncan because they could lean on Manu or Tony as well. Duncan was the best player through the conference finals though, but then in the finals, Tony Parker was the best Spur that took home the finals MVP. I think Duncan has a more deserving case of this finals MVP than the one he actually won in 2005, however. Although of course he was pretty bad in games 3 and 4 in terms of efficiency, and he had the biggest defensive responsibility as well, and that was being, the guy stopping LeBron. Everyone knows in 2007 that LeBron was not going to hit a 3 to save his life, much like Giannis kind of today. So he attacked the basket constantly, and Duncan was usually there to stop him and gave LeBron his most inefficient playoff series of his career. And in 2014, I think we can all recognize this is just a great team in whole. Kawhi was finals MVP, and rightfully so. I already mentioned in the Kawhi video how underrated his defense was and how even in games 3 to 5 he was great offensively. But if you noticed, I've been discussing his championship seasons for Duncan. I mean, if we go to 2001 Western Conference Finals against the Lakers, this is where Shaq and arguably Kobe outplayed him, and they actually swept the Spurs. Duncan was kind of below the norm for efficiency in this series, and in games 3 and 4 averaged 12 points per game on 33% from the field. In 2002 was the same result, a loss to the Lakers. Statistically, Duncan was better, but it's kind of comparable to the KG or Hakeem Olajuwon series I mentioned already, where their insane usage rate just led to pretty much nothing. In 2004 against the Lakers, he was outperformed by both Kobe and Shaq. This one's kind of surprising considering he had Parker and Ginobili playing well that series, and even bench players like Robert Horry, Hedo Turkoglu, and Bruce Bowen provided floor spacing. Duncan wasn't terrible, he just wasn't great. In the eliminating Game 6, he dropped 20 points, 11 rebounds, on 39% from the field and a minus 14. In 2008, he was outplayed by Kobe once again. And in this situation, it was actually Kobe who had less of the offensive support, unlike the 2001 series, and yet Kobe was still far more efficient. In games 4 and 5, Duncan was very inefficient despite having Ginobili, an All-NBA co-star this year, while Kobe didn't have anyone on All-NBA or the All-Star team, not even Pau Gasol. And then 2011, this might be the worst, because Ginobili and Parker were both playing so well this series, and that's impressive especially for Manu, who apparently played with a broken arm on the last game of the regular season and played through the playoffs. But that's no excuse for Duncan not being a top 5 player this series, no excuse that Zach Randolph literally embarrassed him, and also no excuse that the 1-seeded Spurs lost to the 8-seeded Grizzlies that were even missing a 20-point per game scorer for the playoffs in Rudy Gay. It was just bad for Duncan. His series high was 16 points on god-awful efficiency in the final few games, as well as down the stretch in all of them. He had some good moments afterwards and bad. Bad like the 2013 finals, and then a sigh of relief when he won in 2014. But when discussing Tim Duncan's career, I would say he is properly rated. I was kind of leaning toward overrated with how people put him in the top 5. I really haven't seen much of that lately, though. One thing is that he's not over Kobe. You saw when they matched up in the playoffs, almost every single time Kobe got the better end of him in terms of just outplaying him and then also winning the series. But you also got to realize Tim Duncan is arguably the most fortunate NBA player ever. The one year David Robinson gets hurt, they get the first pick in the draft and they get Tim Duncan. And he comes to a team that was always contending. Greg Popovich was his coach every year of his career. R.C. Buford was always there to make moves like getting Ginobili and Parker in there, which were great pickups in the draft. And then he had that consistency throughout. And then also the trade that brought in Kawhi Leonard when they kind of needed to do something. I just hate how people act like Duncan was perfect. I mean, obviously those Lakers series or the 2011 Memphis one, it showed that he kind of wasn't. Or they pretend he was carrying the team like in 2005 when Ginobili was arguably the best player in that postseason. But in the end, I mean, he still is a top 10 player of all time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Tim Duncan. Is he overrated, underrated, or do you think he's right at 10 in terms of the all-time list? But I think that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm going to leave it at that. So yeah, I'm out. Peace.